94.1 KPFA Berkeley, 89.3 KPFB Berkeley, 88.1 KFCF Fresno, 97.5 K248BR Santa Cruz, and online at kpfa.org. The time is 9 p.m. Stay tuned for Suspense.
Tonight, we take pleasure in bringing you Suspense, a weekly anthology of notable melodramas from stage and screen, fiction and radio, presented each week to bring you to the edge of your chair, to keep you in suspense.
.211 West Parmenter. Well, it's the right address, but this can't be it. This is the old Hall of Justice. It's been abandoned since I was a kid.
You Josie Savage, our new public defender?
Yeah?
You're at the right place. Come in.
Thanks.
I'm Merle, your bailiff.
Hi, Merle. I'm Josie. Well, but then you already knew that.
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize that the old Hall of Justice was even in use anymore.
Few people do realize it. That's the idea.
But why the secrecy? Everyone knows that Department 95 handles all mental health cases in Los Angeles County.
This isn't Department 95.
But it says so right here on this letter I got yesterday telling me to report here at 7 p.m.
That doesn't say Department 95 on it.
I thought it was a misprint.
It's not a misprint.
Oh. You didn't press a button. What floor are we going to?
13.
But there are only 12 floors in this building.
Uh-huh.
And yet you just told me we're going to the 13th floor?
Yep.
What in hell?
Close. Welcome to Department 96.
This place, it's like a Hieronymus Bosch painting come to life.
It was a busy weekend.
There's a half-dozen little green men with ray guns. And a coven of witches in pointy hats over in the corner. And a guy who looks like Count Dracula.
Yeah, looks like Count Dracula.
Merle, just what exactly is Department 96?
The place where court cases that don't fit in anywhere else end up. And in a city as big as Los Angeles, you'd be surprised how many cases that adds up to.
When you say don't fit in anywhere else, I'm guessing you're referring to the litigants?
Oh yeah. The law's the law, after all. But some folks don't quite match the definition of person as laid out in the California Penal Code. So dealing with their cases through normal legal channels isn't an option.
Uh-huh. I don't see a jury box.
Strictly bench trials here.
The fewer people who know about Department 96, the better, huh?
Yeah. General public finds out about us, and suddenly the government has to admit to the existence of extraterrestrials, wolfmen, succubi, and old Saint Nick.
Saint Nick? You had Santa Claus in court?
Breaking and entering charge 2 years ago.
Around Christmas, of course.
Natch.
But
I'd better introduce you to the judge before we get started.
Okay.
Judge Cuthbert, this is our new public defender, Josie Savage.
Savage, huh? Hope you last longer than our last dozen.
I'm sorry?
Well, they all ended up in the psych ward within 3 days.
She's exaggerating. Only 10 of them ended up in the rubber room.
Oh, yeah. The other 2 were eaten by their clients.
What?
It's time. Bailiff, call the court to order.
Right, boss.
But I don't even know who I'm representing, much less their case history.
You'll figure it out.
Your client's right over there.
What? That 5-foot lobster in a dress?
Here's her file.
But...
All rise. Department 96 of the Los Angeles Superior Court is now in session. Judge Leonora Cuthbert presiding. Please be seated.
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and miscellaneous life forms. Calling the case of the people of the state of California versus Tammy Isfahan. Are both sides ready?
Ready for the people, Your Honor.
Defense?
Ready for the defense, Your Honor.
Proceed.
Your Honor, the defendant, Tammy Isfahan, has been charged with the crime of mail fraud. The evidence will show that the defendant placed a misleading personals ad which she used to entrap the plaintiff, Mr. Alex Avanian, into bringing her to Los Angeles. Once here, she presented Mr. Avanian with a bill for $487,000, an outrageous sum, and one made all the more outrageous by the trickery which led up to it. The evidence I present will prove to you that the defendant is guilty as charged.
Your Honor, under the law, my client is presumed innocent until proven guilty. What the prosecution attempts to categorize as fraud is nothing more than a misunderstanding between 2 people from different cultures.
Different cultures?
Mr. Avanian, you'll have your chance to speak shortly.
She's a giant lobster.
Am not. That's profiling.
She's a liar and a thief.
Mr. Avanian, control yourself. Defense, please continue.
What the prosecution attempts to categorize as fraud is nothing more than a misunderstanding between 2 people from different cultures. My client is not but a stranger in a strange land.
Defense, look around the courtroom. Everyone here is not but a stranger in a strange land. If they weren't, they wouldn't be in Department 96. So lay off the violin, huh?
Yes, Your Honor.
Just stick to the facts.
Yes, Your Honor. With nothing more than simple misunderstanding at the core of this case, my client is not guilty.
The prosecution may call its first witness.
The people call Mr. Alex Avanian.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in the case before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your first and last name for the record.
Alex Avanian.
You may be seated.
Mr. Avanian, how did you first become acquainted with the defendant?
When I answered that phony baloney personals ad of hers.
Objection. It has yet to be determined that the personals ad was false or misleading.
Sustained. Prosecutor, please instruct your client to leave out the commentary and stick to the facts.
Mr. Avanian, please leave out the commentary and stick to the facts.
When I answered her personals ad in the Glendale Times.
And on what date did you answer the defendant's personals ad?
July 12th.
If it please the court, the people would like to enter into evidence a copy of the personals ad placed in the Glendale Times by Miss Isfahan.
Does the defense have any objection?
No, Your Honor.
The ad will be submitted as People's Exhibit Number 1.
Mr. Avanian, will you please read the advertisement?
Single Philippine female seeks supportive man in L.A. for friendship, possible romance. Me, curvy redhead. You, agreed to pay my relocation expenses. Box 393.
And after having read Miss Isfahan's personal ad, you contacted her, and the 2 of you began corresponding regularly by mail.
Yes.
Did she at any time happen to mention that she was a giant lobster?
No, she did not.
Would you have moved forward with your relationship had you known that she was a giant lobster?
What? Do you think I'm some kind of freak? I don't even let dogs lick me. My cousin Eric tried to get me to go to one of those donkey shows once. But I told him...
Please, Mr. Avanian, yes or no answer for the record?
No, of course not.
Thank you. Your Honor, the people would like to enter into evidence this handwritten receipt given to Mr. Avanian by the defendant.
Does the defense have any objection?
No, Your Honor.
The receipt will be admitted as People's Exhibit Number 2.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Avanian, will you please read this?
It says, Alex Avanian owes me $487,000. Outrageous. I won't pay.
Understandable given the circumstances, Mr. Avanian. I have no further questions.
Does the defense wish to ask any questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Avanian, did Miss Isfahan ever send you a photograph of herself?
No, she did not.
Did you ask her for one?
No. I wanted our first meeting to be a surprise.
Oh, and I'm sure it was. So, what were your expectations when you answered Miss Isfahan's personal ad?
Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Avanian is not the one on trial.
Your Honor, I'm merely trying to more firmly establish the sort of relationship that Mr. Avanian and my client had.
I'm going to allow it, but defense will ask pertinent questions regarding that topic and not use the opportunity to cast aspersions on the character of the plaintiff.
I understand, Your Honor. Mr. Avanian, what were your expectations when you answered Miss Isfahan's personal ad?
Why, nothing more than the ad said. Friendship, maybe some romance. That's all.
Ah, I see. Tell me, Mr. Avanian, do you have friends of a wide variety of ethnicities?
Objection, Your Honor. My client's personal relationships are not relevant to this case.
Overruled. I want to see where defense is going with this.
Do you have friends of all sorts, Mr. Avanian?
But of course, Alex Avanian never discriminates. He loves everybody.
So, then Miss Isfahan's appearance isn't really at issue here?
Well,
Because you certainly aren't the sort to harbor dislike for someone just for the way that he or she looks, right?
Objection.
Sustained. Defense backhanded aspersions are aspersions nonetheless.
Sorry, Your Honor. But it is safe to say that Miss Isfahan's appearance alone isn't enough to preclude friendship. Am I correct, Mr. Avanian?
It isn't that she looks like a lobster. It's that she was deceptive. Yes, it's because she was deceptive.
I understand. I have no further questions for Mr. Avanian, Your Honor.
The witness is excused. Does the prosecution have any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The people call Tammy Isfahan.
Raise your right foreclaw. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in the case now before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you whoever?
By great Cthulhu, I swear it.
Please state your first and last name.
Tammy Isfahan.
Please be seated.
Ms. Isfahan, is that your real name?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm trying to establish a pattern of behavior, Your Honor.
Objection overruled. The people may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. So tell me, is Tammy Isfahan your real name?
No.
So you're saying that you're misrepresenting yourself as someone you're not?
No, it's just that in order for a human such as yourself to say my true name, I would have to clip off 1/3 of your tongue, the part at the back, where it connects.
Yes. Well, be that as it may, your phony name and phony personal ad show a pattern of deception.
Objection, Your Honor. It has yet to be determined that the personal ad placed by Miss Isfahan is, in fact, phony.
Sustained. Prosecutor, limit your characterization of the personal ad in question until defense has had an opportunity to prove its veracity.
Yes, Your Honor. Miss Isfahan, do you admit to having posted this personal ad in the Glendale Times on June 12th of this year?
I do.
And the wording? The wording is exactly as you submitted to the newspaper?
Yes. I mean, I don't want to brag.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I described myself pretty well. If anything, I might have undersold myself a little.
You really think so?
Yes, I really think so.
Your Honor, I posit that Miss Isfahan would be better served by being tried with the other mental health cases in Department 95.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. Are you a trained psychiatrist, prosecutor?
No, Your Honor.
Then skip the grandstanding and get on with it.
Your Honor, if the defendant is convinced that she's a shapely Filipino redhead, then there's no point in asking her anything.
So, you have no more questions?
No more questions.
Defense?
Thank you, Your Honor. In my opening statement, I remarked that this entire case is centered around a simple misunderstanding. I would like to expand upon that. It is, in fact, an entire series of misunderstandings, all of which are very simply explained. If it please the court, I would like to have Miss Isfahan read People's Exhibit number 1 aloud.
By all means.
Miss Isfahan, please read this.
Single Philippine female seeks supportive man in LA for friendship, possible romance. Me, curvy redhead. You, agree to pay my relocation expenses. Box 393.
Thank you. The female part, I believe we can all agree on, yes?
Prosecutor?
Agreed.
And single. There's no Mr. Isfahan back home, correct?
No, of course not.
Very good. Now, where are you from, Miss Isfahan?
Why, the Philippine Sea, of course.
The Philippine Sea. So you were not saying that you're from the Philippine Islands?
The what?
The islands for which the Philippine Sea is named?
Never heard of them.
Well, that's all right. But the point is valid regardless. The assumption was made that Miss Isfahan is from the Philippine Islands. The prosecutor just made it not 2 minutes ago. However, referring to herself as Philippine because she hails from the Philippine Sea is every bit as valid.
Objection!
Overruled. Continue, defense.
Next, I'd like to examine the fourth part of her self-description, curvy. What does one generally think of when the word curvy is used in reference to a female?
Stacked. You know, built like a brick outhouse.
All right, that's one definition. But once again, it is an assumption. The actual textbook definition of curvy is nothing more than possessed of curvature. Is Miss Isfahan possessed of curvature, Mr. Avanian?
Objection. Defense has already had opportunity to question the plaintiff.
Sustained. If you have any more questions of this sort, defense, address them to the prosecutor.
Yes, Your Honor. Do the people agree that Miss Isfahan is possessed of curvature, as described by the definition of curvy?
Yes.
Thank you. I would concur. Her exoskeleton is exquisitely curved and ever so red and glossy.
You're going to make me blush.
Who could tell?
Which brings us to the final part of Miss Isfahan's description of herself. As a redhead.
Let her explain that one away. Lobster Girl doesn't even have hair.
Prosecutor, please instruct the plaintiff to stop blurting out during proceedings.
Mr. Avanian, please stop blurting out during proceedings. Besides, I already see where this is going.
What are you talking about?
Oh, for goodness sake, just look at her. Defense will say Miss Isfahan never said she has red hair. She said she's a redhead, and defense will be correct. The defendant has a red head, ergo, redhead.
Thank you, prosecutor. So, are we in agreement that the personal ad Miss Isfahan placed is, in fact, accurate?
No, we are not in agreement.
Yes. But that still leaves the matter of her demand for $487,000.
Which is the easiest part to explain of all. Miss Isfahan, will you please read this receipt?
Alex Avanian owes me $487,000.
Alex Avanian owes me $487,000. Notice what it doesn't say? It doesn't say $487,000 of what?
Ugh.
Miss Isfahan, is the amount you're asking of Mr. Avanian in dollars?
No, Capex.
Capex? Is that a unit of currency from back home?
Yes, of course. What else would it be?
So, what does 487,000 Capex come to in U.S. dollars, more or less?
About $23?
$23.
We're tying up the court for $23? I've heard enough. If prosecution and defense agree, we're going to skip final arguments and go directly to sentencing.
Agreed.
Agreed.
All rise.
This court finds the defendant, Tammy Isfahan, not guilty. The plaintiff will pay the defendant $23.
I won't pay.
In that case, the plaintiff will be jailed for contempt of court. Bailiff?
I will pay.
Case dismissed. Court will recess for 5 minutes.
Congratulations, Miss Isfahan.
Thank you.
And congrats to you, Miss Savage. You're 1-0.
Just glad I was able to help see that justice was done. What will you do now, Miss Isfahan?
What I came to LA for in the first place. I want to be in pictures.
Really?
Yes. I'm hoping to be a movie star, like Esther Williams in The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
A lady of your unique attributes can be assured of carving out a career in the film industry.
You really think so?
You're gonna set the world on fire.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. And good luck.
Speaking of setting the world on fire, here's the file for your next case, Miss Savage. You're defending Kasuga, the living flame.
What's the charge?
Yes.
Arson?
Uh-huh.
Something tells me this case won't be quite so neatly wrapped up as my first one.
They seldom are here in Department 96, but you'll get used to it. Or go insane, one or the other.
Or get eaten. Don't forget that possibility.
The chances of that are no better than 1 in 20.
1 in 20?
1 in 15 tops.
That makes me feel so much better.
Hey, if you think that's bad, just wait till I tell you.
So ends Department 96 by John C. Alzadek and Dana Perry Hayes. Tonight's story of Suspense. Suspense is produced by Blue Hours Productions and recorded at Melrose Music in Hollywood, California. Tonight's radio drama was written especially for Suspense by John C. Alzadek and Dana Perry Hayes. Hannah Barefoot was Josie Savage. Steve Moulton was Merle. Elizabeth Grayson was Judge Leonora Cuthbert. Rocky Serta was Alex Abanian. Deneen Melody was Tammy Isfahan. And Richard Tatum was Assistant D.A. Berger. I'm your host, Daamen Krall. Next week at this time, tune in again for another study in Suspense.
My name is Veronica Summers, and I am on a journey, one that I hope will illuminate my past, even as it sheds light on my future. For my travels will take me to Blasinghill Manor, where the land meets the sea. There, I will meet strangers I've never known, in a dark, forbidding house I've never seen, but which lies at the end of my journey into night.
What's that, dear? I didn't quite hear you.
What? Oh, I'm terribly sorry, ma'am. I must have been talking in my sleep. Please, excuse me.
Oh, think nothing of it, dear.
Gilport's the next stop, miss.
Oh, thank you, conductor.
You're getting off at Gilport?
Why, yes. I have a job there as a governess.
Really? Have you ever been there?
To Gilport? No, I've never even been to this part of the country. At least not since I was a baby. Are you from Gilport?
Me? From Gilport? Goodness gracious, no. I've only been there once, and I hope to never go there again.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to offend you.
Oh, it's all right. But mark my words, you don't want to go around asking folks if they're from Gilport. Not even if you're in Gilport.
But why?
Gilport's a queer place, always shrouded in mist, even during the hottest summer days. It's a fishing village, though the only fleet that's sailed out of there in decades is the one belonging to the Blasingills.
The Blasingills? Why, that's the family I'm going to work for.
Good heavens.
What? What's the matter?
Don't you know anything about the Blasingills?
Why, no. I've never even spoken to them. All I know is that one day last week, a letter arrived from me at the Home for Wayward Girls. It was from Mrs. Abigail Blasingill Standish, offering me a position as governess to her nephew Arnold and a train ticket to Gilport. And so, here I am.
Well, I certainly hope it's a round-trip ticket, because after one night there, you'll be wanting to go right back to the home for wayward girls.
But why? What's wrong with the Blassengills?
Well, I'm not one to gossip, but there are all kinds of strange stories about that old house of theirs, sitting way up on top of Widow's Peak.
Stories? What sort of stories?
You ready, miss?
Yes, conductor.
Gilport's not a regular stop anymore, so we're just gonna slow down as we go through. Can't fall behind on our timetable, after all.
Oh, I understand, conductor.
Make sure you bend your knees when you jump.
Oh, I will. What sort of stories? Please.
Folks around here swear that Blassengill Manor is haunted.
Will you get away from that window? Staring out of it isn't going to make her arrive any sooner.
And not staring out of it won't make her not arrive.
Well, I'm willing to take that chance. And in the meantime, I'm going to have a drink.
Don't you think you've had enough?
I haven't completely gone blind, nor completely deaf, so no, I haven't had enough.
Alfred, have you forgotten that you have a son to take care of?
No, I haven't forgotten. How could I? If it wasn't for young Master Arnold, that girl wouldn't be on her way here now.
Arnold needs an education, and you know that his condition precludes him from going to school.
And so we're going to have a complete stranger under our roof now. You can just see it. Next we'll be doing guided tours of the manor for all the slack-jawed locals.
Alfred, Miss Summers is coming to live with us, and pouting like a petulant child isn't going to change that.
I am not pouting like a petulant child.
Daddy.
Arnold, son, you should be in bed.
Daddy, why are you and Aunt Abigail fighting?
Oh, we're not fighting, dear.
No, of course not. We're simply discussing the arrival of your new governess.
Is she a nice lady, Daddy?
I don't know, son. We've never met.
Of course she is, Arnold. And I'm certain that you and her will be fast friends in no time. I know it must be difficult for you living here with no other children to play with.
It's all right, Aunt Abigail. I have the ghosts to keep me company.
Yes, well, why don't you toddle off to bed? Your father and I will be up in a minute to tuck you in.
Yes, son. We'll be right there.
All right. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Aunt Abigail.
Good night, dear.
I do hope you're right about Miss Summers. I mean, what do we even know about her?
I know enough.
Well, it's a moot point, I suppose. One night here and she'll want to run right back to wherever it is she came from.
We shall see.
You already know, right? That Yanis Varoufakis, former finance minister of Greece, is the co-founder of a global grassroots movement to revive democracy. He's also the author of several outstanding books, including Talking to My Daughter About the Economy and the new, blistering expose, Adults in the Room, My Battle with the European and American Deep Establishment. Both Noam Chomsky and Slavoj Žižek praise him highly. Many consider Varoufakis, this leather-jacketed motorcycling rebel who openly opposes the international corporate class, to be the most interesting man in the world. Are they right? Find out Wednesday evening, May 16 at 7:30, when he'll be at First Congregational Church, 2345 Channing Way in Berkeley. This KPFA benefit, wheelchair accessible, will be hosted by the excellent Steve Wasserman of Heyday Books. Tickets at indie bookstores and online at brownpapertickets.com. For Yanis Varoufakis, May 16th.
This is Dennis Bernstein from the Flashpoints team, inviting you to a very special event in honor of Robert Perry. my friend, and a profound inspiration. When Bob passed on unexpectedly,